Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the RootHealth Podcast. And this is the podcast where we answer questions that either I get online or from my clients in real life about health performance and everything in between. All right, and so let's start off today. Let's see, longevity training. What is longevity training or a longevity system? Well, I mean, longevity training, as opposed to other sorts of training, really what it is taking the principles of strength training and conditioning as they're related to athletes. You'll notice that strength and conditioning differs from fitness. Strength and conditioning is traditionally going to be more geared towards how a person performs on the field. And so longevity training is more geared towards how they're performing in life. Life is the field. Um, Fitness is more geared towards how their body looks or how they're performing with respect to the tasks involved in the gym itself. So there's that. And so what we're doing is we're taking that principle of performing better on the field and we're taking it and we're translating it to how does it perform in life. And so, there's some differences between strength training and longevity training in that when you're dealing with the population of athletes, athletes are primarily going to be dealing with seasons, and that's going to be the time frame that they have to set these performance markers. They're also going to be dedicating all their time. It's by definition their job as a competitive athlete. We don't mean recreational athlete. We don't mean somebody who's really competitive out on the racquetball court or something like that. What we mean is those people. When we say athlete, what we mean is the people who it's their job to excel out on the field in some sort of event, Olympic, college, professional, even high school. For everybody else, they are, recreational athletes, dormant athletes, some ex-athletes, something of that nature. And so what we're trying to do in longevity training or with a longevity system is we're trying to translate that to the goals of having the person out of pain forever, as long as it can be. So longevity, not for a season, but for life, being disease free, being resilient to injury, and to performing at a high degree, whatever that means for that person, being able to perform to that degree for life. In longevity training, we're going to be utilizing something that we call the stratified physiological model, or actually you can rename it the stratified performance model, meaning that you're performing at a low degree up to performing at a high degree. And so this model is stratified, meaning that we need to fulfill a lower portion before we jump to the higher portion. Where this differs from the gym is most people in the gym are actually performing activities that they would be that they really shouldn't be performing. They really don't have the ability to sustain the physiology to make them injury resilient to what happens at those higher levels. For instance, I see people. You'll have somebody who looks like they can't do a push-up doing a bench press. And you're like, well, why are you on the bench if you can't do a push-up? We need to develop those abilities that are developed with the push-up in order to be pain-free, injury resilient, and perform at a high degree. Whereas the bench press is translatable primarily, mostly just back to the bench press. For most people, at a higher degree, then bench press does have some application, out on the field, much, at a much higher performance level. But, then another thing is what we're doing is is that we're looking to not just test what is happening in relationship to those performance tests like you might get on the field for a strength and conditioning athlete, like the bench press, for instance. but we're looking to take the tests that we're performing for the person's ability to relate back to something that's a health marker. Yeah, so we want to take those blood labs and we want to take what we're seeing in the doctor's office, and we're going to take what we're seeing, from general health markers, and we want to translate that into your ability to do a push-up or run a mile or something of that nature. There's a great credential that we utilize in the longevity training space called Exercise is Medicine, and that basically lays out for all of us what those diagnostic measures are and how they relate back using long-term data. And so that's really what longevity training or a longevity system translates back to. All right, and then I got another question from a client of mine. He's asking me the other day. His name is Dimitri, and he's asking me a really good question. And that question is, what do you do in longevity training with relationship to like high intensity versus high intensity short duration training, or long intensity low intensity long duration training, that sort of thing. So with high intensity short duration training, the example for this would be anaerobic activity, running a sprint. For strength training, it might be, doing lifts that are 2 to 5 reps as opposed to, lifts that are, in the, 15 rep range, stuff like that, or resistance activity, we should say, because we do encourage functional training here. I would say that as you go into because you're looking at a long duration, looking at those baby steps, I like toggling between what we call medium high intensity, where you are pressing that failure range at the 4 to 6 range, for minus a couple of repetitions. So if your technical failure range, that part where your form starts to fall apart just a little bit, happens at, let's say, 8 reps, then you're gonna perform medium high intensity, which is going to be 6 to 7 reps. So you want to get towards that range in the effort level, but not all the way up there. Once you start hitting that technical failure level, you're increasing your proclivity to get injury during the exact activity that is meant to keep you from getting injured. So we don't really want to press that so much when dealing with the longevity training space. Alternately, on the low intensity, long duration, this is very important to keep up almost on a daily basis. This is what fills in where we're missing activity. Especially if you sit at a desk or, you're in an office for a long period of time, you're in the cubicle, you're under the fluorescent lights, all that kind of stuff, doing, maybe you don't even call it training, you just call it activity, that you get out and you just have repetitive motion, just over and over and over again, taking long walks, spending some of that time in the sunshine. With strength training, doing those, short duration, low intensity. I like short duration and low intensity, but done very frequently, maybe even multiple times a day. So at first we're talking about, maybe in the metabolic zone, or we might be talking about just general activity when we talk about those short walks and stuff like that. Those are things that you might want to do that are just really filling in the activity that you're not getting, because of the lifestyles that we lead. Those are fantastic things to do. Those are also things that you where you might plug in, doing more recreational activity, or you might plug in doing, if you can get a job where you are more active, get a construction worker's job or something like that. That can fill in where this where that is. Yeah, I'm sorry if we're getting off of I'm getting off on a tangent here, but it's kind of a broad scope. But when you're actually training your program, after you fill in for that low intensity, long duration work, which is just basic stuff meant to keep you moving for a long period of time, then for strength training, I would do a lot of low intensity, short duration work for corrective activity. This is stuff that's for mobility and for correcting imbalances. And you're just doing that a lot, maybe 5-10 minutes a day, maybe even multiple times a day. There's no overtraining that can be done with it, but you are training the nervous system to keep on developing those pathways that are needed. Then I would plug in, once every 3 to 7 days, doing some medium high intensity, short duration, right? And so that's where you're putting the body into the zone where it's you got the progressive overload. You have to have some sort of progressive overload to move the body forward. But with longevity training, we want to have a lot of time in between to recovery, because recovery is where the magic happens. So I hope that gives you some hints. I'm sorry if it is really ambiguous and large, but hopefully somewhere in my diatribe, I got you some answers to help you fill in. If you read the book, then read the book that we have on Amazon. The Longevity Blueprint, Unbound Health. That'll help a lot. That kind of spells it out a little bit better with examples. And then our books that we have coming along on strength training and on cardiorespiratory training in the longevity training spaces, that can help a lot. All right, and so our next topic is from Stacy. Stacy is a client of mine. She was asking me about decision making in health and performance space. Both from the fitness end. What you might hear. Decision making has to do with information. And information could be coming from you from your doctor. It could be coming from you to you from your trainer. It could be coming to you from a magazine that you opened. It could be coming to you from the news. It could be coming to you from marketing. And so it's rough out there. You have information just hitting you all the time from so many different spaces. And for me too, this is what this is about. And so in order to, and she's like, what do I do? How do I rectify, two different people coming to me from two different positions? And I say, well, a lot of people they'll look at the letters behind somebody's name, which is, great. Until you realize that, a lot of times, the academics that people have been going through, for the last several decades, actually aren't giving sometimes the best information for your own health. They're, a lot of part of marketing and stuff like that. So one of the basics, in this, and I'll just lay out the basics of what we call the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is essentially this effect that people pretend to know a lot more than they really know. And they don't really pretend, they actually convince themselves to know a lot more than what they really know. And so this is one major aspect of critical thinking in the health and performance space. So let's say that you're in a classroom. Let's say that you're in English class, and your topic is The Count of Monte Cristo, or any other book. It doesn't matter. And you go into class, to give your report on The Count of Monte Cristo. And you have 5 different categories of people in the class. You have, at the top category, you have the teacher. And then just below that, you have all the people that read the Count of Monte Cristo. They might have even read it twice, right? And so the third category is people that they shortcutted and they read the Cliff's Notes. The fourth category is the people that read the summary and they got introduced to the book and they just listened to a whole bunch of other people about the Count of Monte Cristo. And the last category, the fifth one, is the people that didn't do the assignment at all. They don't know anything about the Count of Monte Cristo, and they admit it. They'll come into class and just say, hey, I didn't do any of the assignment. Give me the F. Eerily enough, the people in categories 3 and 4 convince themselves that they know much more about the Count of Monte Cristo than everybody else. The teacher knows that the teacher didn't write the book. She's only been studying it. The people that read the book, or maybe even read it twice, know that there's a lot about the book that they don't know. They didn't write the book. They don't live in the times that the book was presented. And so that's why you're studying the book in the first place, is to get some insight. The people in category 3 that watched the movie or read the Cliff's Notes don't realize that there's some things that are different, about the Cliff's Notes or the movie, or that there's some nuances to the topic that they're just missing. And they're really important to giving the overall gist of the situation, or to giving that should be gone over in order to give them a strong hold on the topic, and then of course, the same is said for the people in category 4 who just listen to people, and think that they know, what's going on with the topic. And so you can translate that over to almost any topic in health, and you can ask some simple questions. If you're the one who is in category 1 or category 2, and you do your due diligence and you go in and you read a lot, you understand the topic a bit, you got to make sure that you're not the person that's only reading the Cliff's Notes, of course. And you can start asking questions, particularly about the opposite stance that you've ended up at. If you can answer questions about the opposite stance, that's good for you. If the person you're engaging with can't understand the opposite point of view that you're coming from, or any of the basic bullet points of that opposite point of view, then you're dealing with that Dunning-Kruger effect. You're dealing with a category 3 and 4 sort of level of knowledge. And we all have to do it because we all have to, really, we all have to make decisions, and we don't all have time to read the whole book. We don't all have time to study the time period in which that book was made. And then we have to make decisions. And then we start arguing about our own decision-making, and so it's hard. All of us are doing it. And a lot of us create what's called, cognitive dissonance, because we want to believe that we're making the right decision for ourselves, for our family, whatnot. And so when you're in that health and fitness space, you really want to at least go through that little exercise when you're working with people, so that when you're having conversations, so that you understand whether, number one, you're a Dunning-Kruger, it's coming from a Dunning-Kruger position, or whether the other person is coming from this Dunning-Kruger position. So that, you make sure that, you can hold yourself at least to making your decisions in categories 1 and 2. So that I hope gives you some information. We'll be talking a lot about decision-making in healthcare, as is one of my major interest levels, because, I think that all of us have been making shitty decisions, and that's what's led us to this whole American, the American problems with chronic diseases, and what the longevity blueprint is majorly concerned with is getting us out of those chronic conditions. And if we can make better decisions, then we're much better off. And those are the 3 topics that we'll go over today. So thank you very much for tuning in. Tuning in, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify or whatever. I hope to talk to you soon. And, if you have any questions or anything like that, how to get a hold of me will be in the show notes and all that kind of stuff. Thanks a lot, folks.